Hello and welcome back to another episode of a Cozy Christmas podcast. My name is Art, and I want to welcome you to the episode today. Well, we're well into November now, and the Christmas music is pouring out of my speakers. I'm not able to decorate yet. My wife makes us wait until after Thanksgiving, and that's fine. Beginning on November 1st, I started listening to Christmas music more frequently now. I've been reading some great Christmas books and finding little ways to begin to celebrate this holiday season. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Us Christmas podcasters decided kind of at the last minute to do a Christmas podcast day on November 1st. So as many of us as possible, we tried to upload an episode or share one of our popular ones with the tag Christmas Podcast Day. Next year, we'll probably have a little better planning for that, just to mark November 1st as the day when our Christmas podcast numbers really start going up on November 1st as people are getting ready for Christmas. If, like me, you're in the mood to settle down with some Christmas books that are great to be reading at this time of year, go ahead and jump over to my YouTube channel. I'm going to have at least once a month be posting a Cozy Christmas Book Corner book review video where I talk about some of the Christmas books that I've read during that month. And so I have one coming out, November's Book Corner video. I'll be talking about the Christmas book written by Ed Daly. And today he's going to be our guest on the podcast. I'll sit down with him and interview him about his Christmas book, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Christmas as well as some of our favorite Christmas books. His book is a great introduction to all the things about the holiday season. He's got chapters on the origins of Christmas, on the origins of the Christmas tree, on Santa Claus, on food, on toys, on books, music, movies, and a whole chapter dedicated to Charles Dickens. So you know I had to have him on the show. It gives a good starting point. If you want to learn about a topic of Christmas, it gives a very good foundation on where to begin to read or to learn about some of those things about Christmas. I'll talk more about the book on my YouTube channel, so you can jump over there. Just look up Cozy Christmas Podcast on YouTube and it should pop up for you. Videos are your thing and would like to check that out. I'd love for you to do that. Over there, you'll see me doing some book videos, as well as Gracie and I occasionally will make a video for the YouTube channel as well. We have a recent one where we give you a guide through some of the Christmas catalogs that we've received in the mail this past month. And we tell you what we think might be the big ticket item this year at Christmas. Well, I have a listener memory to share today, and this is from our listener, Katie. Now, in this memory, I'll give you a little bit of a trigger warning. It's not an entirely happy one, and it has to do with death, especially death of a family member. So if that's something that might be hard for you to listen to, go ahead and skip through this part. But I would love for you to be able to listen to this powerful story that Katie shares with us. She says, "Hello and happy November. I have a Christmas memory to share. It's happy and sad. My niece was diagnosed with leukemia in October 2010. We lived far away, but would come back home every second month to see her. That Christmas, we came home to my parents and weren't expecting my niece or sister there that year, as they were at the Children's Hospital for treatment. When we arrived at my parents', we were asked to grab something from the corner store, and I could have sworn I had seen my sister's car drive past us. I texted her to see where she was, and she said at the hospital. But when we got back, we were all talking in the kitchen when my niece jumped out of her room yelling, 'Surprise!' She had been allowed a night's release to come home. That night, we couldn't fit all the presents under the tree, so had most of them in the media room. She came running out that morning, all confused, but I still remember her smile. It was one of the biggest family Christmases we had. Sadly, my niece passed away in April 2011. We have more children born into the family and have many happy memories made, but I will always look at that Christmas as one of my favorites. Now, it's a short memory, but a powerful one, and thank you, Katie, for sharing that. And I just want to speak a moment to those of you who maybe have lost a loved one, perhaps even around Christmas time. It can make those holiday moments very difficult. And I think it's so important for us to be able to have memories like this, that we make those holiday moments special, that we take the time to be with family and to remember that family is so important. And I want to say, too, that family is the people that you make it to be, if that makes sense. There are people that maybe we're not related to by blood, but to us, they're family. And then there are people who are related to us by blood, and yet maybe due to whatever reason, they may not actually be people we consider to be family. I mean, these are difficult thoughts, and I like to try to keep things happy and cheerful around here, but this story is a great time for us to think about that as we head into this Christmas season. Are there people who are hurting right now because of a lost family member, because of some tragedy that maybe even happened around Christmas time? How can we help them? How can we encourage them? I want to share some tips about how can we celebrate Christmas after a loved one has passed. We want to have that joy of the season, but yet we want to acknowledge the grief that has happened as well. And we don't want to forget that person, and we don't want to forget the memories they gave us and the laughter we shared with them. So I want to share with you a couple of ways that can help you if you're having a difficult time during Christmas with the loss of a loved one or someone who's suffering. These might be some ways to help you remember them, and it might make you cry. I mean, let's be honest, that might happen, but I don't mean to be flippant. But as Gandalf said, not all tears are evil. And of course, the first way I would recommend is to tell stories. Tell stories of your loved one. Keep those memories alive and pass them on to the next generation. I think storytelling is such a powerful device. It is such a gift that connects us with those who have come before us. So tell stories, tell stories. I tell stories all the time on here of my grandma and grandpa especially. They had such a huge impact in why I love Christmas today. So share stories. Be sure to laugh. Be sure to cry. Do what you need to do. But share their story. And somehow or some way, you can write it in a book, collect it in a journal, make a scrapbook, a video. There's so many creative ways that we can do. We could even, hey, let's sit around the Christmas tree and tell stories of grandpa, of grandma, of whoever it is that we've lost and the times they've made us laugh, and keep those memories going. Another way is traditions. Was there a tradition at Christmas time that they were known for? Maybe find a way to keep that tradition going in your family. Or maybe buy an ornament or something that helps you remember them, so that every year, as you pull those ornaments out, your thoughts go to them. My wife and I have a couple of special ornaments like that help us remember people that we've lost. And yeah, sometimes it makes us cry, but I never regret having opportunity to remember someone I've cared for who has gone. Those are a couple of my ideas. And then I found this article about 16 ideas for creating new holiday tradition after a death. And I won't take the time to read all of them, but I want to share a couple that I liked. And one is to have music, and that you can either create a holiday playlist or sing one of their favorite songs, create a holiday playlist that contains some of their favorite songs, have a caroling party where you sing in their memory, and again, sing some of their favorite music. So music is a great way. Another way is to light a candle or have some kind of candle ceremony. This says, as a family, light a candle at the beginning of the holiday season and allow it to burn throughout. If you're not comfortable with a real candle, use a fake candle or a special light-up decoration. And then for the candle ceremony, on the night before the holiday or on the night of the holiday, gather everyone for a candle ceremony. Give everyone an unlit candle, and the first person lights the first candle and shares a memory. They can share a memory of their deceased loved ones, a memory from past holidays, or a time during the year when they felt their loved one's presence. You decide. It's your tradition after all. After the first person shares their memory, they light the candle of the next person, and that person shares a memory, so on and so forth. And that's a really great idea. And I'm just imagining a darkened living room lit only by the Christmas tree, and then slowly these little lights begin to fill up the room because of all the memories being shared with that person. Another way they suggest is to give to charity. For that, I want to direct you to hop over to Christmas Clatter. Todd's been doing a Christmas Clatter Cares, occasionally talking about different charities that you could help support if you're looking to give to charity in someone's name. That's a great way. But Todd's got a couple of great ideas over there for you. Anyway, I'll share this article so you can read it in its entirety. It's on whatsyourgrief.com. I think they give some very thorough, good ideas about how to grieve during the holiday season. It's something we don't always like to think about, but it's something we all experience. Don't be afraid to grieve. Christmas brings us joy. And, if you'll allow me to get serious for a moment, to me, Christmas is about that joy of redemption. And to me, we may grieve, but there's also hope. And that's what Christmas is all about. Hope, redemption. So don't forget that. Anyway, if you are one who will be struggling this year at Christmas, or maybe you know that this is going to be a friend or a family member's last Christmas, very likely, my heart goes out to you, and I'm sorry for that pain that you are experiencing. I guess my encouragement to you would be to just hold them close, tell stories, enjoy the days that you have. The time we have with each other is truly the most precious gift we could ever be given. So, Katie, thank you for sharing that. It sounds like it was a hard story to share, but I'm so grateful that you did. If you would like to share a story with the podcast, it can be a happy one, it can be a sad one, please reach out to me at cozychristmaspodcast@gmail.com or on any of my social media accounts. I do check them more or less frequently, and you can reach out to me on those. I'm on all the main ones anyway, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I've been on TikTok. I'm not sure I'm doing it right, but I've mostly just been advertising over there. But reach out to me. Follow me on those accounts. I'd love to hear from you. Well, it's hard to transition from a story like that, so I'm just going to have to do it. I would like to point out, if you'd like to help support the show, please do look at the show notes. I've got a couple of links there for you. You can make a donation on Ko-fi.com. And if you do, I will mail you out a Cozy Christmas bookmark. I also have an Etsy store where I have some hand-painted ornaments. There's a couple of Scrooge ornaments back in stock, as well as some figurine ornaments that I've painted. There's one of Santa, there's a couple of reindeer, there's a snowman or two. So go ahead and check those out if that's something that you would enjoy having. I've also had some people asking about t-shirts with the Cozy Christmas Podcast logo on it. And so I've been working on making a couple of designs for that. And at this time, you should be able to see those if you go and look in the links. I have a Teespring store set up with some Cozy Christmas t-shirts and other merch you can order through there. Notebooks, hats, different things, I think. So go ahead and check that out. Those should be up there. Those purchases will help support the podcast. Again, I want to thank you for all those who have made some Ko-fi donations and purchased ornaments and different things. I've been able to upgrade some of my equipment with that, and I'm so grateful for that. You know, I do this for fun, and it's extra fun when your hobby can support itself. So, but I greatly appreciate it. Okay, so today we have a guest, Ed Daly. Now, you will have just heard him on the Totally Rad Christmas podcast, as well as Christmas Clatter, and now he's good enough to stop by our podcast as well. I was going to have his episode come out last week, but I got a little behind. But anyway, here it is, the interview with Ed Daly, a man who loves Christmas and has written a wonderful book called The Christmas Book, The Ultimate Guide to Your Favorite Holiday. My guest here today is Ed Daly. He is a podcaster, an author, and more importantly, a Christmas enthusiast. And so I invited him on today to talk about his new book, The Christmas Book, The Ultimate Guide to Your Favorite Holiday. Ed, welcome to A Cozy Christmas Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, Art.
Yeah, I'm really glad you reached out to me. And your email, I saw it, I'm like, oh, great, this is perfect. And then I lost it in the mess of my email. So I'm glad we finally got to connect here. So
yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, about your podcast, and how did you go from that to writing a Christmas book?
I was in business for a number of years. I worked on Wall Street, and maybe about 10 years ago, I started, I don't really know why, but just needing a creative outlet, just having the desire to write. I think maybe a buddy of mine was like, oh, you should do something creative. And I wrote a book about breakfast cereal. And it was fun. And then it led to a bunch of freelance writing. And then I started on a really a huge endeavor of writing about history and the history of mankind, really, and the best and worst people of every era. And it was sort of a lighthearted approach to history. It's not like I wasn't writing a textbook, but at the same time, it's tough to go through human history without, writing and learning about some tough situations. And also, if you're writing about anything in the last 50 years, it becomes more polarizing. And so I was very much, I was proud of the project I worked on, but it was heavy, and I completed it right as COVID was underway. And it was just kind of it was a heavy promotion, and just, it was just tough. It was tough for everybody. I can't say I had it particularly hard during COVID, because, everybody I know is okay. But at the same time, it's just, it was just kind of a gloom that was hanging over everybody. And so I guess subconsciously, it was one of those things, write about what you know, write about what you love. And maybe a month after Christmas this year, I just kind of had the idea, you know what, I'd like to write about Christmas, write about something happy, write about something light. And I dove head first, and I spent maybe 3.5 months just consuming everything I could, movies from 70 years ago I had never seen, and learning about every song and every book. And it really just I was either reading or consuming. And while I was working out, putting on some random old Christmas movie, some Humphrey Bogart movie while I'm on the elliptical machine. And it was interesting. I dove head first. And as we had spoken before you recorded, like I through that, I learned about this vibrant Christmas community that I just didn't, I was unaware of. So I'm sitting there, in April working out and having jingle bells in my head, and nobody around is, and it's, it's baseball season and people are not in that mindset, and the people I'm around. And it was cool to find your show amongst others in just the Christmas community. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. It's very similar to how I started my podcast. Again, it came out of COVID last year, and it's nice. This community is nice because it gives you someone to talk to when you want to talk about Christmas in, April, and there's going to be people.
Sure.
I've been wearing my Christmas sweatshirt today, and someone at the gas station when I was there, and they're like, "Isn't it too early for that?" Like, no.
I've never been like, had a tree up in the middle of summer, but I just didn't. It was more I never really thought about it, but I always had a problem with people who had a problem with the complaints. It's starting too early this year, and it's like, who are you to decide when? I mean, somebody who's super into basketball is into basketball 365 days a year. Right. And they're allowed to be into it. And even if it's the off season of basketball, if it's the middle of August and basketball season's not going, if they're talking about basketball, people don't say, "Oh, you're not allowed to talk about it right now." So I do it. My ultimate message for my book is just to embrace it all, embrace every way of celebrating it, every tradition around the world. Like it's I find it all fun, and I like that everybody has a different way of handling it and celebrating it.
I haven't finished your book yet. I've been reading different chapters of interest, and I'll get all the way through it here soon. But that's what I like about your book. You can kind of jump from chapter to chapter, find the one that you like. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, in the first chapter, you talk about the origins of Christmas. And this is a study that I find really interesting. Sometimes it gets a little polarizing a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. I think if you're writing or attempting to write the ultimate guidebook to Christmas, I had to tackle the ultimate origins. And I'm trying to acknowledge everybody's input into the holiday matters. Mm-hmm. And I know there have been much longer texts about the origins of Christmas. Mine is I don't know, maybe 20 pages, 25 pages. And I know there are entire books written about this, but I was just trying to break down as if you were sitting next to somebody at a coffee shop or a bar, and they said, "Well, what's this all about? How did this all come about?" I found it fascinating. So much about Christmas to me was I just accepted we bring a tree into our house and we decorate it. And I didn't really think about why and how this came about and, why it's specifically the date it is when, I mean, no matter any biblical scholar will tell you that it was any history back then, it's word of mouth for a long time. So you don't have, there's not like a specific calendar. They didn't even agree on the same calendars in that era. Right. So you just kind of picked a date, but it kind of all revolves around the solstice. And so the origins of Christmas, it's from different cultures, and ultimately the explosion of Christianity is what kind of turned it into this unified major event. But it without question, there are lots of customs that come from things outside of the Bible.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard arguments or discussions and all this about whether we should even not have a tree or not because of the possible ties to Saturnalia and pagan worship and all that. I don't care. It's like if it's part of the tradition, and I always take it back to what does it mean right now, and who cares if it used to mean that? I love the idea, and this is one theme through all of these different parts of the background. But I like the idea of using light to, to push back the darkness. Winter
Yeah,
is just getting started, but the whole darkest day of the year is like December 21st or 22nd.
right.
And I love that idea. And you see it running through all these different belief systems of having a holiday to, to spread light, to push back that
Right.
darkness.
It's
And then,
nowhere to go but up. I mean,
right.
it's
Yeah.
and if you think about it, these were the most extreme agrarian times. So everything was about the sun, and
Mhm.
there was no artificial light. There was no everything was about crops and animals and just survival. Everything focused around that being the toughest part of the year to get through,
Mhm.
and different celebrations popped up as a partial, like, let's celebrate what we do have and how we can go forward and make next year even better, and whether it's through beliefs that a Yule log is inspiring better crops, or there were lots of theories, but ultimately it there were different celebrations that were, I think, the heart was in the right place in all of these different things. And
Yeah.
so to discount different celebrations as if they didn't, as if, oh, that's no good, like they all were kind of a celebration of life and
Mhm.
loved ones and people around you that matter. And if you think of what Christmas boils down to for most people, it's still that. It's you take stock, people get caught up in their own lives, and
Mhm.
towards the end of December, it's about, hey, let's focus on the loved ones, focused on, people you care about.
Right.
And I think that was really cool, reading about things that happened thousands and thousands of years ago, that really the seed is planted for what we do today.
Right. Right. And I love reading the stories of, I know there's a term for it now, it's slipping my mind, but back when Christmas was a little more rowdy. And
Oh yeah.
I'm not
Like,
a party guy myself, but it's just like they're having so much fun.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Really, there's so many eras where you look at it and you're like, wow, they were really tearing it up back then.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing else to do. It's dark.
That's
So
right.
let's
That's
let's get
right.
drunk and dressed up in costumes. Yeah. Now, when you're studying the history of Christmas and how it was formed and digging into the origins, was there anything that surprised you that you found that maybe you didn't know, or was just kind of a surprising thing that you uncovered?
I did find it interesting that there were sort of what we've already talked about,
Mm.
that you have Yule in Northern Europe, which was the big solstice celebration, and you have Saturnalia, which is Southern Europe. And some of the things they were doing were so similar, even though these were very different communities in the way that they were structured.
Hmm.
And still it came down to decorations and family gatherings and gift giving, creating wax figures for each other on December 24th, and it just like little things that, man, they were doing this in 200 BC and
Hmm.
500 BC. They were doing things that it's just surprising to me that everything kind of lines up, that yes, we've evolved in a million ways, and technology and everything has rapidly advanced, but we were kind of doing all the same things. That was the big surprise. And then other surprises were like, I really had no idea why we kiss under the mistletoe. Like, I had no idea like what that's about, but I just accepted it my whole life, and I accepted that we have a tree. And then you realize, like, it stemmed from certain offerings to Odin, that they would put fruit and carvings in their trees, and those were decorations to anticipate the Odin surveying their land. you realize like some of these things from different celebrations just carried over all the way
Mhm.
to today. I mean, we're not putting decorations on our trees for Odin necessarily, but we still do the same things.
I was gonna say my brother might.
He's ready for the what is the eight-legged horse coming his
That's
way.
right. Yeah. But yeah, that was reading that. That was something I can't remember if I knew that or not. Anyway, it was interesting that, and then I'm thinking, flash forward to the 1800s when they would put the gifts for the kids on the tree,
Right.
and the Victorians would, and along with candles, burn the house
Seems
down.
like
Yeah.
a questionable idea. I'm glad I didn't read too many horrible stories about candles and trees, because it seems like there would have been many.
Right. Um, I was reading a story just recently. I think it's one for my upcoming episode, and they were talking about putting the candles on their tree and lighting them on Christmas. It might have been Christmas Eve, but they were talking about being very careful and made sure to blow them all out after the kids got the presents. So, like, yeah, watch out for that.
And I guess one other thing that surprised me was when I always thought about the Pilgrims in America, and I thought about Thanksgiving, but I didn't realize like how very anti-Christmas they were, and how
Yeah,
they were they were very strict, to the point where they believed celebrating anything was taking away from what their purpose was. And that carried over in Massachusetts until the Civil War. There was, even when the rest of the country had the rest of the the East Coast at that point had celebrated Christmas for many years, Massachusetts held out until like the 1860s.
sometimes the sarcastic side of me says, there's always that guy who wants to ruin everyone's fun.
That's right.
Right. But yeah, I guess I can kind of see their point too. I mean, sometimes we can lose focus of things, but
Sure.
but yeah, it went all over from one extreme to the other. And
Yeah.
maybe we're in a happy middle right now. I don't know.
Right.
But it's not like I have my tree up all year, so it's fine.
Right. But it's cool if you do. It's cool if people do.
Right,
It's
yeah.
just I don't like anyone that's going to tell you how it's got to be.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Right.
if it's not harming somebody, then
Yep.
it's cool.
Christmas is, I don't know, it's just that holiday that can be adapted, and like you said, it can be many things to many people. Some view it as very, very sacred. Others see it more as a secular thing, and I'm probably in the middle somewhere. I mean, I acknowledge there's a lot of sacred to it for me and my beliefs, but there's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look, you're doing a Christmas
That's right.
podcast. You're
Yeah.
embracing the holiday, and in the way that matters to you, and that's important.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I was raised. My mom goes to church every day, and so
Mhm.
I was raised in a fairly religious house. But the one thing that I'm glad that I was raised that, like, however anyone wants to celebrate it, I'm on board with. My parents told me, like, yeah, everybody does it differently.
Yep. Well, another favorite chapter from your book is the one on Christmas books, coming as no surprise to any listener here.
Yeah.
Um,
You have a second podcast.
yeah.
Right.
In fact, yes, I like books so much I had to start a new one. So, yeah, I was just finding too many good stories that I'm like, no, this doesn't really fit for Christmas. So I'll just start a new one. So
Yeah,
it might just be
great.
crazy. I don't know. Yeah. So let's talk about Christmas books. Do you have any, favorites that you came across?
I mean, come across it. Unfortunately, my absolute favorite, not unfortunately, but it's not so mind blowing. I love Dickens, and I love revisiting that book. Every few years, rereading it, and it's like I read it for my son last year, and I was like, man, it's still, he just captures a very specific. He really conjures feelings, and it was such an important book. It's still an important book. And, I've read many things over the years that you can draw direct lines to charitable giving at Christmas time before that book and after that book. And he kind of, he saw things going off the rails somewhat in society. And I think it was very convenient for the haves, which it's not so different from modern times, but it's convenient for the haves to think the have-nots are in their place because that's their lot in life, and pass them off as lazy if they don't, if they're less fortunate. And he really wrote A Christmas Carol with purpose. He wanted to point out in a not so subtle way that, like, yeah, society, you are these workhouses, and these conditions are unacceptable, and we need to think about our fellow man, do a much better job of it. And that book resonated immediately, and it's no surprise that it's been adapted, too many times to count, because the message still matters. And so, back to something I discovered, no, but it kind of reinforced while reading about it and reading all the facts surrounding A Christmas Carol. It made me love it even more, as I wrote about in my book. The big surprise for me was probably "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," when reading about the controversy. I never really thought about it. I mean, I always heard Clement Moore, and there was, so many different studies have been done over the years, but it really feels like the wrong guy got credit for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring it up. It was maybe earlier this year, maybe last year, but I came across this almost, I called it a conspiracy theory at the time, that Moore didn't write it and it was somebody else and they gave Moore credit, but it kind of blew my mind.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of evidence that, and again, we're talking about, yes, this wasn't thousands of years ago, but what we know about things 200 years ago is choppy at best. And even Clement Moore's story, like after the fact, this anonymous story came out 2 years later, his family is like, oh yeah, he would read that story to us, and they gave it to him. And he didn't have a writing style that matched what it was, the way it was written. And he was a pretty serious guy that really didn't participate in some of the, there's a New York society, Christmas society, like Washington Irving was part of it, and he rejected it. And he was on the record many times not really being a writing glowingly about children. And so there are a lot of reasons why it's like, well, this seems like a weird match that he would suddenly write about sugar plums dancing in heads. And then you have this guy Livingston, where he was a goofball, and he was fun, and he was jolly to his writing, and he wrote under different pen names, and he wrote silly stories, and he used phrases in 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, or A Visit from St. Nicholas, that kind of matched a little better. And I've read enough. I mean, it wasn't like one person's take, or it was a bunch of them, and I thought it was pretty compelling. And there will never be a way to know,
right?
But I wanted to shine a light on maybe this guy Livingston really did it, and but without question, that is a very formative poem on like how we view the Christmas Eve experience for children in America.
Right. Yeah. Um, I was just thinking that if Moore did write it, maybe it was like some of that poetry you wrote when you were younger that you hope nobody discovers. And then it's like, oh no,
That's right.
Who found that?
That's right. I thought I buried this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those weren't meant to be public.
Right.
Possibly. Yeah. It just definitely doesn't match. It doesn't match the adult persona of that guy.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up in your book. And you have a good concise argument laid out there, and it's I'm definitely want to look into that more. It's interesting. It's those literary mysteries that are kind of fun to chase down. No matter who wrote it, it's a great poem and really captures Christmas spirit for sure.
Another one I really enjoy was Gene Shepherd, "In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash," which turned into A Christmas Story, the movie that's played 24 hours a day and on Christmas Eve. But I liked his writing style. Really captured. That was one of the only Christmas stories it was about Christmas. It was about a kid on Christmas and barely able to contain themselves, like the way children, that there's a next level of excitement at Christmas time for a kid. And I felt like he harnessed that really, really well in his stories, and his writing style is fun and playful, but it really captures the childhood Christmas experience, for me at least.
Do you think the movie does it justice, or do you like the stories better?
I do like the movie. I mean, he's narrating it, and so you can tell some of his best lines is when you hear narration in the movie. And to me, some of the best parts of the movie are when you're just staring at Ralphie, but you're hearing him say, "It's Christmas, wonderful Christmas, the day in which the kid calendar year revolves around." And he's saying things that just the way kids are running and sprinting and checking the mailbox and trying to drop hints that, maybe this is what I want for Christmas, and visiting Santa, and this is my last hope if I can go put in a good word with the big man. And I just loved the tapping into that childhood emotion at Christmas, the excitement that, you can love Christmas in many ways as an adult, but there's something very unique to the child experience that, when you don't have many things on your plate, it's this all-consuming thing that, like, if, in that one, he wants a specific present, but it's just more like if Christmas is coming, you can't think about anything else. And if you're sitting in English class, like, it's you cannot compartmentalize when you're a little kid. You're thinking about whatever aspect of Christmas that, if you're watching Rudolph's on TV that night. I remember sitting in school when I was in first grade and thinking, well, Rudolph's on tonight. I gotta make sure I'm get the TV on at the right time. And it's like, it was 12:30 in the afternoon. I had plenty of time to get ready, but it's consuming.
Yeah. And you hope and pray that your dad's not watching a game or something. Yeah. Like, I remember Dad, Rudolph's on.
I remember being devastated. I forgot to check the TV guide one year. Yeah. And I just missed it. And back then it was like, okay, I missed it. I'll catch it next December, which feels like 100 years when you're 8 years old.
Yeah. Fortunately, my dad especially was those Christmas movies and shows were very important to him too. So
good for him.
Sure, he had the TV guide highlighted and circled, and
absolutely.
Boy, we're spoiled today because I can just go on YouTube now and watch Rudolph any time of the year.
Anything. It's crazy on demand. When I was researching this book, and I would just kind of try to get a list. Okay, these are the things I've seen. I don't need to watch It's a Wonderful Life to have context. I've seen it enough times. But there were a bunch of movies that were made Christmas lists that I wanted to check out. Like these are movies from 1932 that I hadn't seen, and everything is available.
Mm-hmm.
You can find anything on YouTube or an old TV episode on Daily Motion. There's just websites that have everything uploaded. So
Mm-hmm.
it's if it's not available on a streaming service that you get already, there's just a ton of other options. So researching the book was it was fun, but it was crazy how easy it was to access a silent film on YouTube from 1898 about Santa Claus. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
A guy I know has on his website, it's like a really old edition of Christmas Carol, a film. I think it was probably the first filmed version, and it's on YouTube. So he has it linked on his web page, and watched it. It took like 5 minutes,
Oh yeah, the silent film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the Thomas Edison productions.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the chapters in my book is 100 different versions of A Christmas Carol and kind of a ranking, and yeah, I was able to access that and a 1932 version and then the Alistair Sim version, but all of them you can find pretty easily. It's crazy.
Now, do you have a favorite Christmas Carol version? I didn't actually read that chapter yet, so I haven't gotten there.
Well, I actually went with the favorite. If you think about all the different variations, so many of them are doing a version of Alistair Sim. And I very much enjoyed the Jim Carrey animated one. He was playing Alistair Sim as Scrooge. And so, that is the gold standard, I think, for a reason. Because I saw it at the right time in my life. I always loved the Bill Murray version Scrooged because I saw it in the theaters, and it was, that's the guy from Ghostbusters. So it was, that's a special version to me. But I really think, like I said, I love the story. It lends itself so well. And if you think about the Muppets, the way they do it, and Michael Caine plays it very straight, and he plays it like he's not standing around with puppets. He's playing it like Scrooge. I think he does a great job. And the casting of which Muppet goes into which, Fezziwig, obviously Fozzie Fezziwig, but each casting decision for the Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, is tremendous. So I think there are a number of great versions, and it's fun. But unfortunately, I don't have an unknown version as my number one. It is Alistair Sim. Yeah. He's the gold standard for a reason.
Okay, good. Yeah. So we'll let the interview continue then. So that's the right answer. No, I watched that version as a kid with my dad and grandpa, and yeah, that's probably my favorite. But the Muppets is really good. And yeah,
my parents, my dad especially, loved. It came out when I was a kid, the George C. Scott version. And the only thing with that one is one of the ghosts really terrified me. I guess the Ghost of Christmas Past. When I was like 8 years old, she was very scary to me. So yeah. I still kind of have this uneasiness about it, even if it is I think it's a very well done version of it.
Yeah.
It still scares me a little bit.
Yeah. I interviewed Gerald Dickens, which is Charles Dickens' great grandson, and so he does a one-man production of Christmas Carol. He had said George C. Scott probably has the best performance of Scrooge. He's a very strong and bold businessman, and not a frail elderly man or anything. That he really captures the kind of man he would have been. I think I've watched it once or twice, but I didn't care for that version too much. But it's I don't know. It's tough to separate it, why I was kind of scared of it as a kid and why I didn't fully embrace it. But I just know that's my dad's favorite by a country mile. He's like, oh, how do you not love that one the best? And I'm like, it's just
I can recognize he's doing a good performance, but it's
Yeah.
just it's not my cup of tea, that version of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are lots of cool variations. I mean, Albert Finney, if you
Mhm.
want the musical version, I think it's about 1970. Walter Matthau for Rankin Bass when they do The Stingiest Man in
Oh
Town,
yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, the animated version, there are lots of different ways to tell that story. What's it? They do it on different sitcoms. They've done it on soap operas. I mean, there's just so many different ways, and the story's pretty tight that you can apply it to so many different things that, yeah. And Dickens was amazing. No, that's just it. It's just, he provides the framework for everybody.
Yep. I mean, and how many TV shows have worked it into an episode or something, and
Of course.
yeah. It's, it's probably the most adapted story ever. I would expect.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Right. Yeah, I think even more than like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
I mean, Shakespeare's been done a lot of times, but I don't think it can come close, because I mean, every year
Yeah.
you get probably 5-6 versions through TV or movies. You get new versions. I mean, every year there's more and more.
Yeah, I know there's a new version coming out soon with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, and I guess it's going to
Wow.
be a musical.
I'm guessing it'll be a comedy version.
Yeah. That could be a train wreck, but that could be really good too. I don't know. I'm going to see it in
Right.
any case. So I love that you included it in your book chapter, Letters from Father Christmas by Tolkien. I just came across that one a couple of years ago.
It was cool how with each successive year it got more detailed and more involved. Like the first one was just kind of a quick note from the North Pole, and then he got very detailed on how he would deliver the letters and put a polar bear paw print into it. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I think that one's kind of I want to say it's almost a unknown classic. I think more people are becoming aware of it.
But I guess it's one of those things that it shows that it's pretty cool to have one of the most imaginative writers for a father. That's an unexpected bonus at Christmas time.
Yeah, Dad, why don't you write me stories like this? Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't you do it like one of the greatest writers ever?
Yeah, exactly. Well, in your chapter on books, there's some old standards there. There's a couple new ones to me that I hadn't heard of. Oh, a visit to the bank by Shirley Jackson.
Oh, I mean, Shirley Jackson, you kind of know what kind of direction she'll be going in.
Yeah.
But it was neat. I found it. That was actually a hard one to track down, but I saw when I was just trying to gather what are some good Christmas stories, I saw somebody recommend it, and then I couldn't find it anywhere. And I found it through, it was published in maybe The Guardian or some British newspaper. They published it on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day one year, and I found it through there. But it's a pretty good one. I'll send it over. It's it's a short story, but yeah. I'll send it over to you.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, I gotta read that one. So all right. Well, we could end up talking all night, but we better. It's getting late. But just before we go, just to talk some general Christmas, I like to ask my guests if they have a favorite memory or Christmas tradition that means a lot to them every year.
I guess the way I try to celebrate with my family is very much the way it was done at my grandparents'. My grandparents were very funny people and very happy at family gatherings, and it was a very warm situation, and the music was playing, and it was just very lively. It was not my grandparents were not like what I imagined other people's grandparents to be like. There was Bing Crosby, and everything was just bouncing around, and the house was fully decorated, and everything was done perfectly. And that was my Christmas for the first, I don't know, 15 years of my life. It was this same setup, and I loved it. And And so I guess when I approach decorating the house at Christmas time each year, like I guess I'm doing a version of my grandparents' house, which is so that's many warm memories. But if I have to talk about the greatest Christmas morning memory, was probably when I got Star Wars. Anytime I got a Star Wars figure, I was that was next level. Like I was looking through presents, and I wasn't trying to be the ungrateful kid, but I was like, okay, what's shaped like that old Kenner cardboard with the plastic bubble out of it, and that was anytime I got one of those, that was the high point of Christmas morning for me.
Right, and that was just last Christmas, right?
Yeah, that was 2019.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh man. Well, Ed, thanks a lot for coming on and talking about your book and some of our favorite Christmas stories and how this great holiday got started. I would just want to again recommend your book, the Christmas book. Where can folks find that and buy it?
The easiest place is going to be Amazon. It can be ordered through local bookstores, but it's published through Amazon. So the easiest way is just the Christmas book, Ed Daly, or there's a link there on easyedddaly.com. That's easyedddaly.com. There's a link to the site there.
Well, thanks again for coming on. And if I don't hear from you before Christmas, you and your family have a very Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Art. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you again for listening. I will see you next week, bright and early Monday morning, for another episode of A Cozy Christmas Podcast. I'm not actually sure what I have coming up. I have a guest who will be on coming up near the end of November that I'm really excited about. Stick around. I know there'll be plenty of great holiday fun coming to you over these next 2 months. I've got some more Christmas stories coming. I've got a very special story planned for December that you won't want to miss. I am so excited about it, and I'm starting to record it now. I really hope it turns out how I'm imagining. So keep listening. I've got a lot of fun planned between now and Christmas, but make sure you are taking time for your family and for each other. So until I see you again, be kind to each other, do good, and remember that there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. Have a very Merry Christmas.